everybody. And again, I'd like to welcome you. We're off to another episode of Troy Talks. And today we have a really special guest, but also a friend, Mayor Chris Amorose Groomes, the Mayor of Dublin. Chris, welcome to Troy Talks.
Well, thank you. It is a tremendous honor to be here, and I so appreciated it. When I received the invitation, I was thrilled because it is certainly a privilege to be here today. Thank you.
And it was fun making that phone call to you. You know, these Troy Talks have been really a lot of fun to do, and it was something that I was very hesitant about, but it's been a great time, a lot of fun, and we've got a lot of positive feedback from them. And it's always good to sit down with friends and people that I've come to know. I'll share a little story of how, and I'm going to call her Chris and show no disrespect to the mayor here, but she's become a friend enough that I can call her Chris and she can call me Troy, and it's not about titles.
Please do.
Yes. She called me the first time on my cell phone, and it was right when COVID was hitting, and I knew that we were going to have a great relationship working together because of the angle that she wanted to go about how we were going to do COVID, and it was about economic development and what we were going to do moving forward. So, Chris, I know that your economic background, you understand a lot of things. If you would just tell us a little bit your background and how you came to become the mayor of Dublin, that would be great to hear.
Well, as all stories go, it's a long and windy road, but I grew up in Dublin. My father grew up in Dublin. His family moved there in the 40s. But I went to Dublin City Schools, K through 12. I went really far away from home. I went to The Ohio State University, where I studied horticulture and agricultural business. My family had a landscape company, and upon graduation, I entered into that and worked there for a number of years. And many people ask me, how in the world did you get from horticulture to the mayor? That is not I wasn't a history major or a political science major. Never fashioned myself as being the mayor of the city of Dublin. But what I did have is I had a horticultural background, and I had the ability to read drawings and understand what the built environment looked like. I applied to serve on our Planning and Zoning Commission and thought, well, I could contribute something here. And so I served on our Planning and Zoning Commission for 8 years and really felt led that, that these are important decisions for when you talk about economic development in a local community like Dublin. The only avenue we have to generate revenue in a significant manner is how we use our land. And we can use our land as a revenue generator or a revenue expense. And the city of Dublin has been successful because we have primarily used our land to generate revenue. As you may or may not know, most municipalities are funded by income tax, is our primary source of revenue. And so it is important that we have a strong employment base in the city of Dublin. And so I ran for city council in 2015 and was successful and have really enjoyed that. And I had some great role models along the way. My mother is She is the director of the local Chamber of Commerce in the city of Dublin. And my dad had served on Planning and Zoning Commission when I was a small kid, and he served on city council as well and was vice mayor at a time. So I had great role models of people that loved our community and that wanted the best for it and thought, well, you know what, I've got a couple of kids of my own, so it's my turn.
Good for you. That's a great story. And we all kind of fall into politics, don't we? Because I had no vision of being in politics
Nobody'd want it.
No, no one wanted. So coming from that background and having that business background is definitely very important. Share with us a little bit about Dublin. I mean, it's very business driven. There's a lot of good things and positive things happening up there. And during this run of the economy for the last 4 years, things have been growing. Obviously, Bridge Park is making all kinds of news. The development that's happening there is even made some national news. To me, the growth has been fast, but Dublin has managed it very well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Dublin has changed mightily. I can remember vividly when the first grocery store opened in Dublin. Wow. And it was Cardinal Foods. It was the seedling of Cardinal Health. As a kid, we would go to Worthington or we would go somewhere else to go to the grocery store. And then all of a sudden, we had our very own grocery store. And oddly enough, it's exactly where Bridge Park is located today. Where we got our first access to food in the community is now where you can go and get virtually anything that you want. So there were a number of things that contributed to the success of Dublin. Certainly the development of I-270 and Dublin getting 2 interchanges on that. Then we got their headquarter locations of places like Wendy's and Ashland Chemical, and really that started to bring a lot of momentum and energy into the city. Shortly thereafter, Jack Nicklaus developed the Muirfield Village Golf Course and started hosting his PGA event, the Memorial Tournament there. Those were the three largest catalysts that set Dublin on a trajectory that it has continued to this time. Following that, because of Muirfield Village, I think a lot of CEOs and people that had looking for corporate headquarters, looking for office space, were familiar with the city of Dublin. We started to build along our 270 ring of corporate headquarters, office buildings, things of that nature, which really was instrumental in understanding the tax base. Our founding fathers in Dublin, I remember when I was a small kid, Catherine Headley was the mayor, and some would say that she roamed the streets like a cyclops, that she had a tremendous amount of power, and that she was very concerned about the city and its development and wanted to be an economic driver in the region. In the middle of that time, the Honda plant opened out in Marysville. And that set us on a different trajectory, a trajectory of diversity, because we had students being influxed into our school system that we had never seen before. When I started kindergarten in Dublin City Schools, every kid looked just like me. When my son started kindergarten in Dublin City Schools, it was a very diverse classroom, and that has given them the opportunity to have a worldview that I was not able to have at that point in time. Different kinds of people were coming to Dublin. We had a tremendous amount of economic growth, and we also were headed down diversity path. And so those two things, I think, are what make Dublin a tremendous community today.
That's definitely very important. And since you brought that up right now and the diversity that's out there, you shared with me, you talked about the demonstrations that were going to happen in your community and some of what you felt from that. And talk a little bit about how that all transpired.
Well, you know what? I think that our success and whatever it is that we do is learning to do hard things well, right? And we want everyone in our community to have the opportunity to learn to do hard things well. I think the hardest thing that's come out of this pandemic and the social injustice issues and all of those that have arisen is, how do you have a hard conversation? And that is a skill that is built over time. None of us are wired to succeed at having hard conversations well. And in the city, we had some number of students. One of them called my cell phone and said, "Hey, we want to have a protest." And I said, "Okay, then have a protest." And we talked through what that might look like. And they said, "Well, we'd like to do it on this day at this time." And I said, "Well, that's great. You do it whenever you want to do it, because that's your First Amendment right. And a lot of people have died defending that. So I think it's really important that you'd go for that." I said, "If you don't mind, I'm going to call the police. And the police aren't going to come to watch you. The police are going to come to watch everybody else and make sure that we set up a safe environment for you to do whatever it is that you feel led to do." There were a lot of people very upset in the community that we would have protests in Dublin. For me, I was thrilled, because these were young people. These were my kids at school's friends wanting to come together and say that they had a passion for a more just system. And I didn't see a thing in the world wrong with that. So they did. They came. There was a couple hundred of them. They were passionate. They marched around. They had chants, they had speeches, they did everything that we hoped that they would do. Dublin is a community where we love our own. My mantra for mayor is, I want to be a community that loves people and uses things. We live in a world that uses people and loves things. And we want to flip that on its head. And we want to say, we're going to love people and we're going to use the things that are available to us. And so the opportunity for us to love our young people and provide a safe space for them to learn to express their voice, understand their voice, and maybe even just find their voice, and be able to do that in the safety and security of the city of Dublin, that's an educational opportunity I want to be about providing. So we had a lot of people that were upset. We had a lot of people that were encouraged. Again, it was divided, as all things are these days. But at the end of the day, these kids were amazing. At the plaza there on the west side at Bridge Park, they didn't leave so much as a water bottle behind. They picked up all their stuff, they threw it in the trash can, and they went about their business. So for me, we're going to learn to do hard things well together. And that's a hard thing to do. And we're going to get better and better and learn to do it well.
Wow, that's a great statement, Chris. And I couldn't agree with you more. And the excitement that you had and the I want to say joy, but you were just so pleased with how the kids handled themselves. We talked after those demonstrations took place, and you and I had a mutual friend whose daughter was kind of leading the whole charge.
Yeah.
So I communicated with the parents also, and just kind of what they were dealing with, and it was all good, and it was all positive, and I think that set a tone for what can be done, and kids can do it. And if you give them the ability, they'll do it the right way, and have that hard, as you say, hard conversation with them. It becomes very meaningful. And those kids will take that responsibility and move forward. And it gives them a sense of pride. But, to me, they had a comfort level of knowing that, they went to you first, the mayor of the city, not Chris, but to the mayor of the city, and say, here's what we want to do. And that was a great way to start it off. So
the mutual respect is what led to the success, and that's exactly what it was. It was mutually respectful. Our kids are not just kids, our young people. There were a lot of college students and parents as well, but the respect that they showed the city in communicating what it is they wanted to do was phenomenal. And the respect that the city showed them by making sure that they were safe, that they were accommodated, that all of their needs were met, it really was a great turnout.
It was, and I've heard more than just from you how successful it was and how pleased everyone was with that. Chris, we have all the talk out there of defunding the police and about the demonstration that happened, and you said that the first phone call that you made was to your chief of police. Obviously, you've got a great relationship with your police department and your police chief. Talk about that and how the police reacted during those demonstrations, and I think they played a major role in this too of how it went. So talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, our new police chief, Chief Justin Pice, we were really fortunate to have him. He has kids in the schools, and he has kids in the community, and so he's really connected to the young people of our community. We oversee the student resource officers in each of the schools, all three of our high schools and the middle schools as well. And so we work really hard to keep our police engaged with our young people in the community. It's been a very successful program. I know Chuck Collier has been the SRO for my kids at their school, and they think so highly of them. He has become a great guidance for them, and ultimately our school system hired him to oversee that for safety for all the schools. But Chief Pice did a wonderful job of communicating. So there were points in time where the demonstrations turned into some speeches, and we have some kind of raised planters in the West Plaza there, and kids would get up on the raised planters and they would say a few things. And then we had one of our black kids jump up on the planter, and he started saying a few things. And he said, and I don't want to miss one point for you all. He said, I want you to understand that in Dublin, we're really fortunate that we have a wonderful chief of police. And he asked Justin to come up on the planter with him. And he said, I want you to understand that we want to see change across the country. At the same time, I want you to understand how blessed we are here in Dublin. And he kind of welled up in emotion, and he ended up hugging Justin, our Chief Pice, right there on the planter. And he said, thanks for all that you do in this community. And Chief was reciprocated, and Chief spoke a few words about the character of this young man and was really proud of him for finding his voice and expressing his voice. And so, there was a number of events like that happened where people understood that not everybody's as lucky as we are. And the maturity of those young people I don't think at the age of 15, 16, 17, 18, maybe even 25, maybe even 30, understood how fortunate that I was. And these young people had a really great grasp of understanding that they were fortunate, but there were some other people that might not be as fortunate as them, and they had genuine concern.
We are so blessed in the 12th Congressional District. Our police and our citizens, they accommodate each other, they help each other, they care about each other, and that disrupt is just not there. A friend of mine now, but it's Tommy Landerman, and he's at Zanesville High School where I went to school, and Tommy has just been phenomenal. And for him to be in that high school and to guide those students, and they have come to adore him, they love him, they care about him. And I was at a state playoff game. I love high school football, and so Zanesville we're very fortunate to hold a lot of the regional and semi championships there because of our facility. It's beautiful. The students were getting a little noisy. Let's put it that way. And Tommy just turned around and just kind of waved the finger at him. Didn't say anything, just kind of waved the finger at him. And that's That's all it took. And, the kids respected that, and they knew what that meant, and they knew that, okay, that was, we need to go somewhere different with this. So, and you heard on, some even here in the state that, people were wanting the school resource officers to be pulled out of these schools. And I think there's no better way for kids to learn about the police and having those relationships. And I've not heard anything negative, in the district that has come out of having a school resource officer in these school buildings. And I think it's important to continue doing that. Going from Zanesville to Newark to Dublin to Mansfield. I mean, I had lunch with the police chief. It's a new chief up in Mansfield, and just they want to have these relationships with these young adults and young kids. You and I keep referring to them as young kids, but some of them are young adults. They're in their early 20s.
And many of them are parents.
And many of them are parents, exactly. It can be done. And it as you have said before, and I said, it takes work to make relationships. And, they need to continue working on those relationships and communicate with each other. I think that's a great path to go down.
The Columbus Metropolitan region really is full of great partnerships. I know when Columbus was having their riots downtown, we sent 4 units down. We did what we could because, Mayor Ginther is... we have a tremendous amount of respect for him. He and Andy Shattuck and the folks down there work really hard, and we want to be supportive of them in every opportunity that we can. So in the Columbus region, we're really fortunate that we do have a lot of people that understand regionality versus just home turf.
Yeah, I'm friends with Cap Chandler, who is the chief of Westerville Police, and I know that they sent crews down to assist with the downtown police officers. So it is important, and I think I couldn't agree with you more. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about how you and I developed our friendship and the impact of COVID. Dublin was booming. I mean, this 12th Congressional District, we had the lowest unemployment that we've had as a nation in over 50 years. Ohio was booming. The 12th Congressional District, as I said earlier, was booming with economic development. We had a whole lot going on. We still have some things going on, but then COVID hit. And that has drastically affected a lot of local governments. As you said, you're based off the income tax. And our governments shut down the economy. I mean, they basically said, look, we've got to contain this spread and flatten the curve. As trying as it was, I mean, we weren't really sure. So it was something, and I thought Governor DeWine's leadership when this started was great. But the CARES package, the first thing that we passed out, had a lot of dollars out there for local governments. And once it passed the federal level, it went to the state level, and the state legislature had the opportunity to place that out there. But as you and I started having that conversation, and we're going to talk about the negatives here a little bit about, having those Fed dollars passed down to local governments. But talk about what you first experienced and what you heard from your business people and business owners when their businesses were told to shut down.
Well, it starts at the beginning, right? The first thing that happened was you picked up the phone. I called a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Not everybody picked up the phone, and you picked up the phone. And then and there, I knew that you were going to be representative to us, that you hear us, that you were going to take the time to listen and to understand. I think so often we as elected officials jump to solutions before we necessarily always understand the problem. And I appreciated the fact that you answered the phone and that you listened to understand what it was that I was trying to tell you and not assume that you already knew what I was going to say. So I think that's a lesson for all of us in life, but certainly in this political environment, is to first seek to understand and then be understood. And so that's where it started for me. And the money that the federal government has poured into COVID, again, I said I was a horticulture major. I wasn't a political science major, but I would venture a guess that is unprecedented, the amount of money that has been flowed into the economy with the stimulus package for folks receiving $1,200 or $2,400 and $500 a child, or whatever those numbers ended up being for different individuals. That was a significant influx of money into local communities. Now, communities like Dublin didn't receive as much as other communities did because they didn't meet the threshold to receive those. And truthfully, we were okay with that. We knew that we had better reserves, that we had been more fiscally conservative, that we had budgeted to more a minute level than many of our peers had the opportunity to, because we had pursued this 2% income tax for so long. So that money fed in, and then it was, the PPP to help our businesses protect their payroll so that they didn't have to lay people off because the unemployment numbers were skyrocketing, and there was no way to distribute to those people a sufficient level that, if you distributed the money to the companies and let the companies distribute the money to the people, it was a far more equitable and rapid rate to get money into the economy. And then the CARES dollars were coming to local governments. And again, this was something that had never really happened before, or at least to my knowledge. And the difficulty in the CARES dollars getting distributed out, it came to the state of Ohio rapidly. But then the ability of the state of Ohio for it to distribute it to its entities was a slower process. Now, I can see wisdom in slowing down that process because government, by design, is meant to move slow. And that is oftentimes for a good reason. Sometimes it isn't. Oftentimes it is. And so government was behaving in the way that it was really designed to behave, is to slow things down and to be thoughtful and rational and get opinions and gather information prior to acting. Government is not designed to be a nimble equity firm. And so, and so there's been challenges with the distribution of the CARES dollars, certainly. But the federal government did get those dollars out the door quickly. And, I don't know a whole lot about how other states handled it internally. But I know our state, now we're going to be bumping up against some deadlines, and there's going to be some additional challenges. I don't know that they're right or wrong. I mean, hey, you could play, my poor son is a Bengals fan, and we could play Monday morning quarterback or Friday morning quarterback, as it were, from last night's game and try to change things and make them as though they weren't when they happened. But there's not a lot of value in that. But it's moving forward, and that's where we are, and that's what we have to do.
Talk a little bit about those deadlines that are coming up so people have an understanding of what it means for these deadlines and the impact that it has.
Right. So the Senate had passed how the distribution for the phase 3, really, of the CARES dollars that the state received from the federal government. It has been in the House of Representatives here for a number of weeks, and it could be a number of weeks before. Now, all of these dollars, to my understanding, have to be encumbered by December the 5th. For the city of Dublin, local government fund that was used to distribute the first 2 sections of that money. The third is being contemplated to be distributed per capita, which we in Dublin feel is a really fair way to distribute the third tranche of money. We received a little in the neighborhood of $300,000 federal money from the first 2 distributions. We would stand to distribute or to collect, nearly $1.8 million from the per capita distribution, which would be really helpful to us. And honestly, that was okay with us because we knew that we were largely in a better position than many other local communities. My friend Mayor Maggard in Whitehall, we could go around Ike Stage in Grove City. We could go around, and I sit on boards with these other mayors, and I understand that their challenges are different than my challenges. And we sat back when the local government formula was used to distribute those dollars. And when it came time to distribute the last half of the money, we really felt like per capita distribution was appropriate because COVID affected everyone. And in the city of Dublin, we had a lot of employers that have been significantly affected. We are a job importer. There are a few job importers around the city. Dublin, our population rises from 50,000 to 70,000 people on any given day. And so we take a great amount of pride that we provide jobs for our neighbors, that they can come to Dublin and work. We have worked very hard to keep our income tax low at 2%. Most around the area are at 2.5%, and they receive that second 0.5% wherever it is that they live. That money is paid there. So the per capita distribution was important because we only get it on our nighttime population of 50,000, but we are going to use that money to help our daytime population, which is 70,000. So hopefully that gets through the House and it remains a per capita distribution, and then we're able to assist in a lot of other ways.
Well, and that's something that you led the charge. I mean, you were the first mayor to get that initiated. You and I communicated with a couple other mayors throughout the district, but I mean, your leadership on this has been phenomenal, and that's been one of the characteristics that I really respect for you and what you did and the passion that you took into that and wanted to go about it differently. You're like myself. You think outside the box a little bit and kind of go after what's going to be beneficial. And, to me, I mean, this is about economy, the economics of it. It's about jobs. And look, I know that the importance. I mean, we've got to combat COVID. It's a huge problem, but we are going to work together, and we're going to get in there and roll our sleeves up and keep fighting, and we're going to continue doing that.
We really want to control the things that we can control. So what's happened. That's water over the dam.
Yep.
What we can control is the future. And economic recovery never has been a more important topic of conversation in our lifetimes as it is right now. And how we come out of this, and how we, you're a parent too, right? You tell your kid it's not about the loss, right? It's about what did you learn? What did we learn coming through this? What are we learning on a daily basis? How are we going to move forward? What behaviors will we have differently moving ahead than we had previously? And I tell you, the economic opportunity on the other side of this crisis is going to be tremendous.
It is.
And whoever figures out how to capitalize on the economic recovery are going to be the folks that will experience the greatest amount of success.
Agree.
And we want to focus on recovery in the city of Dublin. The entrepreneurial spirit in the city of Dublin is phenomenal. Dana McDaniel, our city manager, and I, we call them serial entrepreneurs. Like, we have people in the city of Dublin that just start business after business after business after business and sell them, and many of them become very, very successful. And so we want to make sure that when we receive our CARES dollars is that we are placing those in an economic development strategic place, so that when the recovery begins and the opportunities are presented, that we have the opportunity to capitalize on them, because we have the people that can. And then maybe we can provide more than 20,000 jobs to our neighbors. Maybe we can provide 40,000 jobs to the people in and around the city of Dublin. And that's our goal, is to provide that opportunity for as many as we possibly can, and to position ourselves coming out of the economic recovery poised and ready to do that.
And that's a great outlook, and I couldn't agree with you more. To go from 20 to 40 would be huge, and it can be done. And I think the right mindset is there to do that. And people want to come out of this. And as we go around the district and talk, we've done a back to business tour the last couple of months, and talking to those businesses, they're excited, they're motivated to be open again. They're just going crazy to be back open and want to continue that. And they're already, as you said, entrepreneurs are already looking for new ways that they can continue and get over past this COVID economy. And that's the top priority that they have is what's next. And they've taken that mindset of positive. I mean, it's going to be a bright future from this. And we've learned a lot, and we learned what not to do again. So I look forward to doing that. And I know that Dublin is going to do that.
I tell you, we have some of the hardest working folks that I've ever met working collectively on our city council, and Dana McDaniel and his staff do a phenomenal job of keeping our eyes on the prize.
It is amazing, and I know I've become friends with several of your council members, and they're passionate, and they love Dublin. When you go back to Dana, I've had a working relationship with Dana from the state legislature, and the respect that he has down at the State House is phenomenal, and his work ethic. But his mindset, how he thinks out, again, back to that thinking outside the box. And
he's the general.
He is the general, and it is amazing. So when I first knew that I was going to, representing Dublin from that standpoint, I knew that I was glad that I already had a relationship with Dana. So that's been very helpful. So.
And his vision on this has always been, you can tell the military guy in him, because he looks at that hill and says, how am I going to take that hill?
Yeah, exactly. For those that can't can't see him yet. Someday maybe we'll have him on Troy Talks, and we'll just get a little bit more insight from it. So, as we've said earlier in this podcast, we talked about the boom and what was going on in the economy right now and how great it was up to February, and then just to have everything happen. COVID. It's really how you and I start our relationship. I mean, by both of us picking up a telephone and communicate with each other. But from an economic standpoint, talk about that with the recession and that's happening right now and what Dublin's doing.
Right. Well, as you were talking about how the Ohio was really humming along. This Columbus region unemployment was unbelievably low. Interest rates were unbelievably low. Unemployment was unbelievably low. The economy was perhaps at the best we've ever seen it here in Ohio. Everyone was communicating to us that a recession was coming, right? That was a part of every conversation. Everyone's fiscal outlook for the next 18, 24 months had a recession component in it. I think what COVID did was expedite that. It compressed that time frame into what might have taken 18, 24, 36 months, and is it compressing it into 6, 12, 14 months, 16 months maybe. As a horticulturist, I am not an economist, but all of the economists would tell you that the bubble was about to burst. I don't think that anyone anticipated it being this quick. And I think what COVID has done is it just compressed that time frame, and it essentially is like a ripping off of the Band-Aid. Rather than peeling off a piece of tape off the skin, the hair on your arm real slowly, it ripped it off really fast. You hear going from 0 to 60, we went from 60 to 0 in a matter of days. And I don't know that the economy has ever seen an adjustment like that. But with that is also a lot of opportunity. We have a chance to condense the time period it takes for us to learn the things that we need to learn and make the adjustments that we need to adjust, let the market correct itself in the appropriate ways. And maybe, I'm hopeful, that this will not be a 3, 4, 5-year recession, that this might be a 1 or 2 year recession. And if that's true, I'd be grateful.
Yes, I would be too. Couldn't agree with you more on that. Chris, as we wrap up, and you've talked about your small business, since I was just recently appointed to the Agricultural Committee in Congress about a month ago now, tell us what horticulture is.
Well, horticulture is the study of plants, and it's something that I have always been passionate about. I can remember I was probably 3 or 4 years old when I started my first garden. My father's a horticulturist as well, and I think it just runs in our veins. For me, my horticultural consulting business, it's called Amorose Landscape Services. I was very creative in naming my business. But what I do primarily is I do horticultural training. So you, coming from Zanesville and an agricultural background, you know that intuitive knowledge is fading by the day. Right? People don't understand how things grow. They don't understand the natural world. They don't understand the relationships with pruning and things like that. So the horticultural consulting I do is two focused. One is the training aspect of trying to, large portions of the population that are going to work in the horticulture industry, primarily grounds maintenance and things like that in and around central Ohio and the country for that matter, need to understand how growth happens, why growth happens, what makes growth happen. So I do a lot of training for pruning, fertilization, understanding plant life cycles. Really, I'm a nerd. And I think if you cut me open, some would say I would bleed green, and others would say I bleed brown, because I like to have dirt under my fingernails, and I like to see what the earth can produce. So I do horticultural training, and then I also manage grounds maintenance contracts for third parties. So if you had a large portfolio of property and you wanted someone to manage your grounds maintenance contracts, that's something that I would do. Conversely, if you had a grounds maintenance or a landscape company and you wanted specified training for some of your folks so that they could understand the importance of timing of pruning, the timing of fertilization, what plant fertility looks like, soil fertility looks like, then I do training on those components as well. So I'm a total nerd. I love to work with things that don't have power cords, because one of the things I enjoy about working in horticulture is that The natural world runs on a set of principles that are not impacted by anything else. So the sun rises and the sun sets, and it is predictable as the sun rising and the sun sets. For me, sometimes working with people is far more difficult because there is no predictability. And so I love to still get back in my garden. I think when you were at the house the other day, you walked by my tomato plants out front. I still love to keep in the garden because it's predictable, and they operate from a very set series of rules. And everyone has to obey them in that world. And for me, that's comfortable.
Wow. Chris, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your service to the city of Dublin. I want to thank you for being a mom and all that you do. And it's been a true pleasure to have you here with us today, but also the friendship that you and I have developed. As we've gone along, we've figured out other mutual friends that we have, and that makes it even more fun. So thank you very much for being here with us today.
Well, Troy, I can't thank you enough for serving. You know, people ask all the time, I don't know how you do what you do. I haven't done it very long, and you have done it for a really long time, and you've done it with excellence, and you've done it out of a passion for people. And serving out of a passion for people is what our country needs. And so I appreciate all that you do.
Well, thank you very much. And I couldn't agree with you more. It's for the people. Thank you.